All right. Got it.
Hi, everyone. Happy Disability Pride Month. My name is Nico Meyering. I use he, him pronouns. For a visual description, I'm a white man with blonde hair swept off to the side. I have large dark glasses. I'm wearing a black t-shirt, and I'm seated in front of a blurred purple background. I'm honored today to be joined by my colleague, my friend, Bridget. Bridget, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Bridget MacCormack. I have brown hair. I have larger dark glasses. I have a black My Hero Academia shirt on with a little black hoodie. I am sitting in front of a blurred background. It's kind of blue with the fan above, in case you see the little lights. And I'm excited to be here.
Fantastic. I happen to know Bridget through a panel that we did at Anime NYC last November. So it's been a while since we saw each other. I'm always honored to have her input, though. She's a fantastic partner in presentations and a great partner in advocacy as well. So we're excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here. This is going to be fun. You always ask intelligent questions and it makes me like to think. So
I appreciate that. Bridget, what does disability pride mean to you?
So as someone who was born with disabilities, I never really knew that I was quote unquote lacking anything. I have very low vision in my right eye. I've had 2 surgeries, I believe, to correct that. So I never really knew that people could see better than I could. But it shouldn't matter that I can't see as well as the next person, because I see the world in a different light and everybody sees the world differently. Same with mental health. I have bipolar, ADHD. I could rattle off a list, which is why I'm such a mental health advocate. And I think it's very important for people who have any type of disability to share their story more publicly, because we see the world completely different than the next person. And whether you have a disability or not, everybody interprets life differently. So I feel like people should try to listen to stories more from other people and get viewpoints, as well as there's nothing wrong with us, you know, we're just the same as everybody else. We just have, like I said, different views and different struggles. Like some people might struggle to figure out how to separate their lights from their darks. We just struggle a little bit differently.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I love what you said about approaching life from a different perspective and having a different approach. One thing that I definitely knew before I began this project, but what got really hammered in for me in the middle of doing these interviews is that there's no singular disability experience or disability culture. It's a myriad of experiences. It's everybody's individual culture and perspective. And I think there's a lot of great strength and beauty in that.
I agree. I think people should help share their stories more to help end the negative stigma around disabilities. Like, treat us the same. Look at us in the eye and talk to us. We're normal humans. I don't bite.
Fantastic, fantastic. Bridget, what are some lessons you've had to learn during your disabled life?
So I'm actually going to talk about my previous job. I'm not going to say where I worked or anything like that, but I was actually a victim of discrimination.
Really?
Yes, in this day and age, in healthcare. So as I said before, I know I can see the face already. I have ADHD, and I don't know if you can tell or not, but I am swiveling in my chair a lot because I can't really sit still. And I took my medication and everything. I followed my routine. It's just I've never, quote unquote, masked who I was to try to fit in with society. My parents didn't believe that I had to mask who I was to be who I am. So it's a bit harder to try to explain to other people. The issue I had at work was, how could you have anything wrong with you? You're so young, you can't have depression, or you're just attention seeking with your anxiety. I think my favorite was, how can you be blind and work on a computer? Well, you see, I can make the screen bigger. So I just think that people need to try to be more understanding that just because you can't see that I'm disabled doesn't mean that I'm not.
There's also, I think, often a misperception from able-bodied people predominantly that disability is a binary, right? That you're either disabled or you're not disabled, and there's not really a spectrum of function or ability, which is not true.
Correct, completely, because I am high functioning. If you will, I get up, I go to work, I pay my bills, and I, can go out and do presentations and panels and try to raise awareness. Whereas my friend Abby really couldn't do that because she'll get shy and she'll get a little uncomfortable. But it doesn't mean that she isn't, as high functioning as I am. She just needs a bit more time. So I think that's one of the things that people also don't understand is no two disabilities, even though you could have anxiety, I have anxiety, we're never going to be the same.
Absolutely.
It's like fingerprints.
Absolutely. They are like fingerprints. If you've seen one disabled person, you've seen one disabled person.
Exactly.
Wonderful. I love to hear it. I want to flip the question on its head now, right? What have you had to unlearn as a result of your disabled life?
I feel like when I was younger, and again, my parents are phenomenal. They're very on board and accepting. My mother actually got the semicolon tattoo when I got it.
Okay.
It was her first tattoo ever, and she got it to help support me through a troubling time. So the thing that I had to unlearn was that I don't have to not talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to hide the fact that I have a disability or that I am different than Joe or Keith or whoever. And it doesn't mean that I'm broken or there's something wrong with me. It just means that I'm more special than you. It means that I can see and understand and work through things in a completely different way that you would never have thought of.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think of it, because I don't know if I ever told you, I actually have my TEFL. I'm a licensed teacher for
Okay.
English as a second language, as a foreign language. And one of the reasons that I like doing this so much is I feel like because I learn differently than the average person because of my disabilities, it brings me and enables me to have a new approach to things. And just because they're not the normal way to approach things does not make them wrong. And I think I had to unlearn that I can bring it into my day-to-day life and I can help advocate it. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. And I feel like the older generation doesn't want to hear it. They'd rather just pretend it doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's our job as the younger generation and as disabled people to be like, nah, man, it's okay.
Yeah, I would agree. It is the job of every individual generation to try and make things easier for the folks that come after us.
Exactly.
I do, really echo what you were saying about older generations wanting to be a lot more tight-lipped and a lot more closed off about being disabled. That was, the world that my parents prepared me for. And they had me fairly late in life. So when I became a teenager, they were even older. And the world that they prepared me for in terms of how open society was to this idea of disability pride, in terms of how open people would be about wearing your emotions on your sleeve, was very different than the world I was prepared for. So it was a huge sea change for me as a teenager to be told at home, don't talk about your feelings and don't share your experiences. and then to go to a school and to go into a world where people were actually quite receptive.
Which actually that reminded me in school because of my like IEP and my disabilities, we were taken, a couple other students who also had IEPs, we were taken out of the normal class and brought to a more smaller hands-on class that would like, accommodate me fidgeting crazily. Or we had one of my other classmates, he would rock back and forth because his ADHD was that bad. He couldn't sit still. And something that some of the other kids and like that stayed in the classroom, they thought that we were extra special and they had to talk to us a certain way. And it's like, no, my grades in math are higher than yours. I just learned differently. And like you said, it's our job to make it easier for the generations to come.
I'm sorry that you had faced, and perhaps still face in some sectors, this incorrect belief that difference equals deficit, right?
That is, I feel like, the most common viewpoint of everybody.
And I'm so glad that you're able to stand up for yourself and show that that's not true. Because when you stand up for yourself, you're also demonstrating a new and kinder way of not only thinking, but of living your entire life.
Exactly.
So thank you for that. I am interested to hear more about this TEFL, right? Can you talk more about what that was like? I love to celebrate disabled success.
I'm sorry, I missed. Oh, the TEFL. Yes, I actually finished that. There was an accelerated option and the longer option. I did the longer option because I was still working full time.
Sure.
I made lesson plans. I actually have taught virtually, of course, because of COVID. I've taught in Taiwan, Cambodia, Korea, and Japan.
Fantastic.
And it is really, really fun because I get to hear about their life while I kind of force them to only speak in English.
Sure.
But it's also, I get to help bring light to this because in other countries, disability awareness and disability pride is almost non-existent. So by talking about it to them and when I introduce myself, I always put in like, not because I like to put it in people's faces, but I like to just be honest about it. Like I have ADHD, I have this. And I feel like it not only helps bring awareness to it, but it's like, hey, if my teacher, right, can have ADHD or depression or be like blind in their eye, there's no reason why I should have any kind of prejudice to my neighbor who is autistic or has Down syndrome. I feel like people with Down syndrome have a really bad rap sometimes because I don't want to say they have like any kind of physical identification, but they do have a similar look that you can identify, oh, they have Down syndrome. And I feel like because you can identify that without even talking to them, automatically there is the stigma attached to them, which makes it even worse.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I can't talk about this from expertise or anything, but I have known a few people with Down syndrome, and like other disabilities, it's a spectrum in terms of your capability and capacity. So judging by only one yardstick misses a lot of necessary nuance.
Not to be that person like, oh, my cousin has Down syndrome, but my cousin does have Down syndrome and she's a lot younger than me. And growing up trying to talk with her was a bit more challenging because she was lower on the functioning spectrum. So, you have to take a bit more care of her when you go out or, hang out with her because she doesn't understand a lot of the social cues. And that's something that you kind of have to protect them from when people just don't understand that she understands what you're saying. She just doesn't know when she's supposed to talk to you and like cut you off.
Fair.
I still struggle with that sometimes. I talk over people and not on purpose. It's just I myself don't have the best social cue acknowledgements. So, yeah.
Of course. Bridget, thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with me. I only have one last query, and that is, what is one thing you want able-bodied people to know about disabled life?
Ooh, okay. As we spoke about earlier, no two people have the same struggle.
Yes.
Everybody has a different struggle. And I feel like just because you know somebody who has Down syndrome, who is blind, who has ADHD, you cannot compare the two, because nothing in life is black and white. There's no correct way to say or interact with anybody that you don't know until you get to know them.
Mhm.
And I think one of the biggest disadvantages you have as a younger person or someone who was born with a disability is that people talk down to you when they're older than you, like, oh, you're too young to be sad, you're too young to have any blindness, death, anything, because they were raised or have the opinion that only older people are allowed to have any kind of disability.
Sure.
I also think it's important to understand when I say, for me, myself, someone asks, can you see that over there? Like, what's that say? And it's more than 100 yards away. I can't even tell what color that is sometimes.
Right.
And they think I'm, kidding. I'm like, no, I don't know what that says, but my phone can zoom 100, so I can like telescope it.
Valid.
I also think that people should, when someone opens up to them about a disability, like someone you just met and you're becoming friends with, and they're like, oh, just so you know, like I have Asperger's, or sometimes I'm bipolar, I have bipolar, and sometimes, my mood can just flip. And just so you know, it's not something that I can always control. It's just something that is who I am. And when you tell someone new that, I feel like you can tell when their body language changes and they now look at you or think of you in a different aspect than what they already were building up.
Sure. Thank you so much. Bridget, this is now your chance to promote yourself. Any social media channels you want to give a shout out to, any projects that you have coming up that you want to promote? This is your space. Where can
So
people find you online?
you can find me on anything: TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, at BAMALA 101, and I do talk about more mental health awareness, and I show you how to make things too. So it's kind of fun. You can see some of my cosplay work, or I actually have snippets of the panel we did in New York
Oh,
on
okay.
stuff. Yeah, I had my friend Lewis record some of it, so
Mhm.
you can see parts of it, which is nice. And hopefully with you next or this year, we can have another panel in New York, and it'll be on there as well.
Fantastic. Bridget, thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
My pleasure. I'm always happy to talk with you.
Of course. Have a great weekend, okay?
You too.
All
Bye,
right.
Nico.
Bye.